3 unanswered calls, 14 unread messages, one text that says, "Guess you're too busy for us now." You're staring at your phone at 2 a.m., wide awake, completely alone, wondering how you became a ghost to the people you love most. You don't just work different hours, you become invisible. You're awake when the world sleeps. You're sleeping when life happens. And slowly, your friends stop inviting you because you're never available anyway. But what if the problem isn't night shift? What if it's that you're playing by day shift rules in a night shift world? In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to keep your friendships alive while working the hours nobody else wants to work. No fluff. Just real strategies from real night shifters who've cracked the code. Let's get honest about what's really happening here. When most people talk about maintaining friendships on night shift, they throw out useless advice like, just make time for your friends, or communication is key. Yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. The problem isn't that we don't want to see our friends. The problem is structural. Think about it. Your day shift friends finish work at 5 p.m. They're having dinner at 7 p.m., hanging out at 8 p.m., and winding down by 10 p.m. You're either just waking up to get ready for your shift, or you've just gotten home and you're trying to decompress before sleeping through their entire existence. A study from the University of Chicago found that night shift workers report 30% fewer social interactions than their day shift counterparts. But here's what's more interesting. It's not just about the number of interactions. It's about the quality and the guilt that comes with them. Sarah, a nurse I interviewed who's worked nights for 6 years, put it perfectly. I'd force myself to stay awake for my friend's baby shower on a Saturday afternoon. I'd show up exhausted, barely able to hold a conversation, and then feel guilty because I wasn't fully present. Eventually, I just stopped going because I felt like a bad friend either way. This is the trap most night shifters fall into. We either sacrifice our health trying to maintain a day shift social life, or we withdraw completely and watch our friendships dissolve. But there's a third option nobody talks about: redesigning your friendships to fit your reality instead of pretending you live in theirs. The first thing you need to understand is this: your friendships aren't dying because you're a bad friend. They're struggling because you're trying to maintain day shift friendships with a night shift life. Once you accept this, everything changes. You stop feeling guilty and start getting strategic. Here's your first major shift. You need to completely redefine what staying in touch means. For day shift people, staying in touch means meeting up, phone calls during lunch breaks, or after-work drinks. For you, it needs to mean something different. Asynchronous communication is about to become your best friend. This means voice notes, long texts, video messages, anything that doesn't require both people to be awake and available at the exact same time. And before you roll your eyes thinking this sounds impersonal, let me tell you it's the opposite. Marcus, who works night shift security, records voice notes while he's on patrol. He'll send his best friend a 5-minute voice note talking about his week, funny things that happened, or just random thoughts. His friend listens during her morning commute and sends one back. They've been doing this for 3 years, and Marcus says their friendship is stronger now than when they tried to coordinate phone calls that never happened. Here's why this works. It removes the pressure and the guilt. Your friend doesn't feel ignored when they text you at 2 p.m. and you don't respond until 10 p.m. because you were asleep. You've already established that you communicate differently. There's no sorry for the late reply because late doesn't exist in asynchronous communication. But here's the crucial part. You need to have an actual conversation about this with your friends. Send them a message explaining your schedule and suggesting this approach. Something like, "Hey, I've been thinking about how we can stay closer despite my crazy schedule. I'm going to start sending you voice notes and longer messages when I'm free. I might not respond immediately, but I promise I'll always respond. Does that work for you?" Most people will appreciate the honesty and the effort. The ones who don't? They're probably not the friends worth bending over backward for anyway. Now, let's talk about the coordination strategy that actually works. Once a month, pick one thing you'll absolutely show up for. Not everything. One thing. This is your non-negotiable friend event. Maybe it's a monthly dinner. Maybe it's a game night. Maybe it's just coffee with your closest friend. Whatever it is, you plan your sleep schedule around it. Jennifer, a night shift ER doctor, blocks out the first Saturday of every month for brunch with her college friends. She stays awake after her Friday night shift, goes to brunch exhausted but present, then sleeps Saturday afternoon and evening. She only does this once a month, so it doesn't destroy her health, but it's consistent enough that her friends know she's committed. Consistency beats frequency. One monthly hangout you never miss is more valuable than promising to come to everything and showing up to nothing. Here's another game changer. Embrace the overlap hours. Depending on your shift, you might have a few hours of overlap with day shift schedules. Maybe it's before you go to work or right after you get off. These 2 to 3 hour windows are golden. A Tuesday morning breakfast at 10 a.m. might be weird for most people, but if your friend works from home or has flexibility, it's perfect for both of you. The key is identifying which friends have schedule flexibility and building your social life around those relationships. Remote workers, freelancers, teachers in summer, other shift workers. These are your core social circle now. It's not about abandoning your 9-to-5 friends. It's about being realistic about which friendships can naturally accommodate your schedule. Here's something positive that nobody talks about. Night shift can actually make your friendships deeper. Yeah, you read that right. When you can't rely on frequent casual hangouts, you're forced to make the time you do have together count. Think about most day shift friendships. How many of them are built on convenience? You grab lunch because you're both hungry at noon. You meet for drinks because everyone's off work at 5. You hang out on Saturday because, well, that's what people do on Saturdays. There's nothing wrong with this, but it's not exactly intentional. When you work nights, every social interaction requires planning and sacrifice. You're either staying awake past your natural sleep time or waking up earlier than your body wants. This means you're not going to waste that time on surface-level relationships or meaningless small talk. You're going to choose carefully and go deep. David, who works the overnight shift at a distribution center, told me he used to have about 20 friends he'd casually hang out with. After a year of nights, that number dropped to 5. But those 5 friendships are now the most meaningful relationships in his life. They have 2-hour-long phone calls about real stuff. When they do meet up, they actually talk, not just exist in the same space while scrolling their phones. This is the depth advantage of night shift friendships. You learn who actually values you enough to work around your schedule. You learn who's willing to have a video call at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday or meet for breakfast at 6 a.m. on a Wednesday. Those people are your real friends. But here's where most night shifters mess this up. They feel guilty about being selective. They try to maintain every friendship from their day shift life and end up exhausted and resentful. Give yourself permission to let some friendships fade. Not because you're a bad person, but because your time and energy are limited and valuable. Ask yourself, if this person worked night shift, would they make the effort I'm making? If the answer is no, it's okay to let that friendship become more casual. Send the occasional text, like their social media posts, but don't drain yourself trying to maintain something that isn't mutual. Now let's talk about creating new friend groups that actually get it. One of the smartest things you can do is build friendships with other night shift workers. They understand your schedule, your struggles, and the weird things that only make sense to people who've lived this life. Look for other night shifters in your workplace, obviously, but also in online communities, local shift worker groups, or even just the 24-hour gym you go to at 3 a.m. These friendships are naturally easier to maintain because you're operating on the same schedule. Rachel works nights at a hospital and started a group chat with 4 other night shift nurses from different departments. They'd never been close before, but bonding over their shared experience of working nights created a tight friendship. They do post-shift breakfast twice a week and have a standing Wednesday afternoon movie time. No coordination stress, no guilt, just easy friendship between people living the same reality. And here's a pro tip: combine social time with things you need to do anyway. Need to work out? Find a friend who'll go to the gym with you at 2 a.m. Need to grocery shop? See if another night shifter wants to hit the 24-hour store together. You're getting your errands done and maintaining friendships at the same time. This is also where hobbies become powerful. If you have a consistent hobby during your waking hours, you naturally meet people with similar schedules. Gaming communities, book clubs, hiking groups, whatever interests you. The people you meet through these activities are more likely to have flexible or unusual schedules themselves. Let's talk about the hardest part: setting boundaries without feeling like you're being a bad friend. This is where most night shifters struggle because we're conditioned to believe that good friends are always available and flexible. But that's not sustainable when you work nights. You need to get comfortable saying no. No, you can't come to the Friday night party. No, you can't be the one who always adjusts your schedule. No, you can't answer texts immediately just because someone sent them. This isn't mean, it's necessary. But here's how you say no without damaging the friendship. Be clear, be kind, and offer an alternative. Instead of just saying, "I can't make it," try, "I can't make Friday night because I'll be working, but I'd love to grab breakfast with you on Saturday morning if you're free. I know that's early, but it's when I'm actually awake and can be fully present." The alternative is key. It shows you care and you're trying, just on your terms. And if someone consistently rejects your alternatives and only wants to hang out on their schedule, that tells you everything you need to know about how much they value the friendship. You also need to educate your friends about night shift life. Most people genuinely don't understand. They think you're just working different hours, not that you're essentially living in a different time zone. Take the time to explain what your schedule actually means. When you sleep, when you're awake, why you can't just sleep later to make a 6 p.m. dinner work. Create a simple visual if you need to. Show them your schedule. Explain that asking you to hang out at 7 p.m. is like asking them to hang out at 3 a.m. Once they see it visually, most reasonable people get it. And be honest about your energy levels. It's okay to say, "I can come to your birthday dinner, but I'll probably need to leave by 8 because I'll have been awake for 20 hours at that point." Setting these expectations up front prevents disappointment and resentment on both sides. Here's another boundary that's important. Your sleep time is sacred. This is non-negotiable. A good friend wouldn't expect someone to skip a full night's sleep for a casual hangout. The fact that you sleep during the day doesn't make your sleep less important. Protect it fiercely and don't feel guilty about it. Finally, accept that some friends won't adjust and some friendships will fade. This is painful, but it's reality. People who've never worked nights often can't understand why you can't just push through the exhaustion or why you can't make their schedule work. They're not bad people. They're just living in a different reality. The friendships that survive your night shift are the ones built on mutual respect and genuine care. Those are the friendships worth investing in. The rest? Let them go with gratitude for what they were and acceptance that life circumstances have changed. Here's what I want you to understand. Maintaining friendships on night shift is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be months where you're social and connected, and months where you barely talk to anyone outside of work. That's normal. That's okay. The goal isn't to maintain the same social life you had before night shift. The goal is to maintain meaningful connections with people who matter in ways that work for your actual life. This looks different for everyone. Some night shifters maintain a small, tight circle of 3 to 4 close friends and let everything else become casual acquaintances. Others build large networks of fellow shift workers and have a completely different social circle than they did before. Some people maintain 1 or 2 day shift friendships with a lot of effort and build the rest of their social life around their schedule. All of these approaches are valid. What matters is that you're intentional. You're choosing your friendships rather than letting them choose you. You're investing your limited time and energy into relationships that give back. You're being honest about your needs and boundaries. And you're accepting that your social life will look different than it did, and that's okay. Remember, working night shift doesn't make you antisocial or a bad friend. It makes you someone with a unique schedule who needs to be creative about maintaining relationships. The friends who matter will work with you. The ones who don't aren't your people anymore, and that's a valuable thing to learn. The most important friendship to maintain is the one with yourself. Don't sacrifice your health, sleep, and well-being trying to maintain friendships that don't respect your reality. You deserve friends who value you enough to meet you halfway. If you're tired of feeling isolated on night shift, you don't have to figure this out alone. Head over to nightshiftershub.com for more real-world strategies that actually work for people like us. Join our Telegram community, Night Shifters Hub, where thousands of night shift workers share tips, support each other, and prove you can have a social life, even when you work the graveyard shift. And subscribe to this channel because we're building a community of night shifters who refuse to let their schedule define their life. You're not alone in this. Let's navigate it together.